Now let's add some color and texture to our models. We're going to be using the Materials panel. Now you can find it here. It's the little box with the checker on it. And you'll see that when I roll it out, we have a couple of different tabs. We have the first one is Materials in Use, and these are the materials currently in the scene that I'm working on. And then we also have a browser that allows us to browse through a number of standard materials here. And then if we want, we can hop over to the 3D warehouse where there are a number of different types of materials that we can use. So let's go ahead and add some materials to this object. Now the easiest way is just to select the material. Your cursor will change to a paint bucket tool and we can just apply the materials. So let's add some roofing to this. So I have this surface here that needs a roofing material. So let's go ahead and scroll down and find the roofing category. And I'm going to select, let's go ahead and select some asphalt tile. Notice how I have my paint bucket. All I have to do is hover over either a face or a group or a component and then just apply that material. Now, if you want, you can also sample materials from your scene. So we have a sample material, basically an eyedropper tool. So I can hover over this here, this edging around that window, and you'll see that that material is metal rough. So if I go to my eyedropper tool and sample different ones, you'll notice how each one just changes that base material. And it also changes to the paint bucket. So I can just sample this material and now I can use it to paint those edges. Now you can use materials to do groups of objects. So here I have the foundation and we can change that all at once. So let's go down to asphalt and concrete, and let's select a nice concrete here and apply that. We also can do selection by material. So if I right click over, say, this face and do select all with the same material, it will go ahead and select all of those faces in the model that have that material. So let's say we wanted to change that. Well, let's go down to, say, something like brick and siding. And instead of this beadboard, maybe I want something a little bit more like a modern redwood siding or something like that. And there we go. So as you can see, it's very easy to select, sample, and apply materials in SketchUp. And I find this to be one of the more pleasant activities. So go ahead and add some materials to your models. You can also create your own materials in SketchUp free using bitmaps. Now, I've given you a couple of bitmaps in your exercise files. So if we go to exercise files, images on your desktop, you should have a couple of different images in there. And so we're going to use these to create some materials. So here I have my house, and let's go ahead and replace the lawn of this house. Now, in order to create a material, you do need to select actual faces. So if something's grouped, you need to either double click to get into that group, or you need to explode that group. So here I have just a raw face. And let's go to our exercise file. So all I have to do is just left click and drag into the SketchUp interface. So I'm going to select grass diffuse and then just drop that into the scene. And so now it's going to ask me, how do I want to import this file? Well, I want to import this as a material. So when I do that, it allows me to place this however I want. So I just drag along that face and then left click and drag, and this is where I adjust the scaling. So maybe something about there. And once you left click, it will tile it over the rest of the face. And so that's a very easy way to make your own material. Now, if you were to go into your materials panel, you could use your eyedropper tool or your sample material tool to select that, and now you have that material in the scene, and there it is. Now, let's go ahead and do something a little bit more complex, and I'm going to zoom into the side of this house, double click on it, and you can see that it's grouped. So if I double click on it again, got another group, and so I want to get down to the point where I just have the raw face. And so again, I'm going to go into my exercise files, images, and I'm going to select metal siding. And let's go ahead and left click and drag, drop that on the scene. Again, we're importing as a material, and let's just align that. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag so it's about maybe halfway up the wall, and then it will tile. So if we like that, we can eyedropper it. Let's go into materials here. We can eyedropper that material. There it is. And now I've got my paint bucket. Eyedropper it. And then just go ahead and paint that face with it as well. And then once I click off of this, you can see I've got that material on the building. Now that might not be to your taste, but the example stands. We can create our own materials using bitmaps that we can import from our disk or from the web. When you apply textures to an object, you do need to make sure that they line up the way that you want. So we can do that using the interactive texture tools. So here I have a house, and if we zoom into the fireplace here, you'll see that the tiles on this wall of the house don't quite line up with the ones on the fireplace. So we've got a kind of a gap here. Well, we can fix that just by adjusting that texture. So I've ungrouped this house so we can just select all the faces. So I'm going to select this particular face, and then right click, go down to texture, and then select position. Now we have two options here, position, reset position. Let's go ahead and do position. And what this does is it brings up all of these little handles that we can use to adjust the texture however we want. So the red one allows you to actually move it, green, rotate, scale, and shear, which is kind of a perspective effect. Now in this case, the scale and the rotation are fine, so all I really want to do is just adjust this so that it's the way that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and line those up so that the grout lines are all even, and then just click off of this, and there we go. So very easy to do. And again, it's just a very simple way of adjusting and aligning the textures so they match up perfectly. In addition to bringing bitmaps into SketchUp as textures, you can also bring them just as raw images. And this is great for things such as reference. So let's go ahead and bring in an image as reference and show you how that works. So I'm going to go into my File Explorer here. On my desktop exercise files, I should have an Images subfolder. And under that, I should have one called Floor Plan. So all I have to do is just left click and drag that into SketchUp. Now instead of bringing it in as material, we're just going to bring it in as an image. So click on Image. And here's my image. And I just want to maybe snap that to origin. Left click and drag. And you'll notice in the bottom right hand corner, we're actually dragging up a height. So we can specifically size this, but there is another way to size this, and I'm going to show you that. So I'm just going to left click and just get that into the scene. So now that this is into the scene, I can use my tape measure tool to resize this. So I know that this dimension is exactly 40 feet. So I'm going to select my tape measure tool, go from here to here, left click. In the measurements box, I'm just going to type 40 feet. It's going to ask me, do I want to resize the model? Hit OK. And there we go. So now if I were to use that tape measure tool, you can see that yes, that is 40 feet. And so now I can use this as reference to model against. And probably the best way to do that is to select this image and then group it. And so once you have that grouped, it's easy to model against it and you won't stick any geometry to that. Textures and materials are just one way to change the look of your SketchUp scenes. Another way is to use styles. Now, these can be used to create stylistic images, or they can just change the way SketchUp looks when you work. So we can find styles over here, and let's go ahead and open up that panel. Now, right now, we have what's called a simple style. Now, if we want to change the style, we just go over here to the right and click on Browse. Now, you can see we have a number of different rollouts here for different types of styles. So right now, we are in the simple style, which is one of the default styles. And if we want, we can change this. So if you don't like the way SketchUp looks, you can change it maybe to a landscape architectural style. And you can see that the colors slightly change in the SketchUp scene. We could just use a construction documentation style. And that's a little bit more plain. It doesn't have a horizon or background. We can also do things such as a wireframe or hidden line. And that gives you, again, a different look. We also have a nice X-ray look, and that can be handy when modeling. Now, in addition to this, we have things such as photo modeling, which is kind of a blue line. We have sketchy edges, and that's pretty much as is described, and it gives you kind of more of a charcoal or an ink pen drawing style. And so if you want to use that for presentation, it might be a good way to go. Now, in addition to this, we also have what's called assorted styles. So if I click on one of these, you can see, well, now this looks like it's done on kind of a vellum paper or something like this, which has different types of edges, or this. So all of these can just add a little bit more spice to your presentations, and you can change these to really to whatever you want. So go ahead and explore these styles and understand which ones work for you. If you have SketchUp Go, then you'll also have a couple of other features. One of the more important ones is the ability to edit materials. So you can change materials to work the way that you want. I have SketchUp Go, and so let's go into our materials panel. So right now I have this object in the scene. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and just eyedropper that material. Now, if you have SketchUp Go, you should get this little button here that says Edit Material. Left click on that, and now I'm in my Edit Material panel. I can change the material name. Just going to leave that the same. We can also change the way that this tiles. So right now I have a width and height of 3 feet. If I change that to say 5 feet by 5 feet, I can do that. Now these are locked, so I can unlock that and really type in any dimension I want. So instead of 5 feet by 5 feet, I can do 5 by 6. We also have opacity. For this particular piece of geometry, that's not going to work. And then more importantly, we have color. So this allows you to fine-tune the color of that material. And so basically what this does is it retones it. So if I left-click on this, you'll see that I get a color picker. And now I can choose whatever color I want. And so maybe I want to make this kind of more of a light blue or something like that. I can certainly do that. Now, once I have everything the way that I want, just hit back, and now that material has changed in the scene. So let's go ahead and do one more. I'm going to use, again, my eyedropper tool, and let's eyedropper this piece of glass. I'm going to go into Edit Material. Now, because this is glass, I don't really have a texture or a bitmap attached to this. But I can control things such as opacity. So if I want these to be a little less opaque, I can, or more. I'm going to leave that around 50%. And then again, we can change the color. So if you really don't want this to be blue, you want it to be maybe more of a blue-green, you can do that. You can really change it to whatever color you want. And once you're done, just hit back, and that is now the new color. So the materials editor is very straightforward. It gives you an additional level of control over your materials in SketchUp Free. If you have SketchUp Go, you can also create and edit your own styles. So let's take a look at styles. Now here I have a simple style on this scene. If I want to, I can touch this tab here, and that allows me to edit the style. So instead of simple style, maybe I will call it my style. And now we have all of these different rollouts that allow me to change whatever is in the style. So if I want to, I can change my edge settings. I can turn off edges. And so you can see that I can make it look a little bit more rendered, a little less drawn. I can turn on back edges. Gives me kind of an X-ray look. I can turn on profiles, which are the edges that are on the outside of the model. We can also do depth cues. So edges that are closer to you are darker than the ones that are further away. Another nice one is extensions. Now this allows me to kind of do those drawn extensions. Now I kind of overdid that a little bit, but I can type in, say, a number like 5 or 6. You can see I get this little overdraw, and that can be a nice effect. We can also add jitter, and so that will kind of make the lines all kind of wonky, look a little bit more hand-drawn. Now, in addition to this, we can change things such as face settings. We can display wireframe, hidden line, shaded with textures, or a monochrome look. I'm going to go back to shaded textures. And then we can turn on or off transparency. So if you look at the windows there, they kind of become opaque or transparent. And then we can also change the quality of this if you want to do faster or nicer. Typically, faster works just fine. And then we can also turn on X-ray mode. Now, in addition to this, we have settings for the background, what's the color of the ground, the sky, and so on. We can also do a watermark if we want. And we can also do modeling settings. So you can change the way that modeling looks when you work with the object. We can also view hidden objects or not, as well as tags and so on. So you can make a style for very specific ways of looking at the scene. Now, once you have that, basically you can just go back to your home menu and you'll see that now I have my style. And now if I browse for another style, let's say I wanted to use one of these others here, it will ask me if I want to save the changes to that style. So I'm going to go ahead and save them. And now I'm using that other style. But if I go back to my home menu here, you'll see that I have my style already saved here. So I can just switch between multiple styles. So one of the things you can use multiple styles for is that if you're modeling, you can go into a style that helps you model, and then you may have a presentation style. So creating your own styles can be a very handy way to get the scene to look exactly the way that you want.